gonna make a coffee cake together, and today I'm gonna use some summer berries. I have some blackberries, strawberries, blueberries in there. I have about 5 cups of berries. You can do any combination that you want, as much of each or as little of each as you want. I have made this using some nectarines mixed in with the berries, some rhubarb, strawberry and rhubarb. It's really good together. So you can go ahead and play around with this mixture and use as much or as little as you want. I would definitely say go closer to 5 cups of berries though. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make our topping. The topping is really easy. It's only 3 ingredients: melted butter, sugar, and flour. And I just wanted to make a little note here that I do claim to make healthy recipes. And what I mean by healthy is from scratch, home cooked food, using basic ingredients, not like going to the store and buying a coffee cake that's already pre-made, that has probably 50 ingredients in it. Half of them you can't pronounce, you have no clue what they are. Or even buying a box mix. I'm not knocking all the box mixes out there because some of them are okay. But again, you're not looking at a long ingredients list. You're using real ingredients at home, like milk and flour and eggs and butter and yes, sugar. I do try to cut down on the sugar in a lot of my recipes, so I'm not always using the full amounts that I used to use. Sometimes I replace some of the sugar with honey, and I do that in the crust of this, or the cake part of this coffee cake you'll see today. Okay, so first, we're gonna start with the melted butter. I'm gonna get that into a bowl, and that's 1/2 of a cup. And putting 1 cup of sugar in with the butter. And I'm putting 1 3/4 cups of flour. Today I'm using all-purpose einkorn flour. If you haven't used einkorn flour, you really should try it. It's super delicious, more nutritious. But any all-purpose flour will be fine. Mix this topping together with our hands. You're looking for a crumbly consistency. It is a coffee cake and it has that famous crumbly topping that everybody loves. So I believe the difference between a coffee cake and a crumb cake is the crumb cake has a lot more of that crumbly topping. The coffee cake just has a little bit. So if you can see here, just getting this all together. And separating it a little bit with our hands so that it does go on more crumbly. And you don't want it all in one big pasty piece. And we can play around with this a little bit more when we do get it on top. For now, I'm just gonna put that aside. Okay. So next we're gonna make the cake part. And for that, we're gonna use 2 1/4 cups of einkorn flour, all purpose. I haven't tried this recipe with whole wheat or whole grain flour. I do grind the einkorn grain into flour and That's something that I should try. It's probably just as good. It's funny that you get used to making certain recipes a certain way and everybody wants them that particular way. So especially with the kids, they don't like change and they want it to taste the same. So sticking with the all-purpose einkorn for now. And to that, I'm going to add 3½ teaspoons of baking powder. And I have 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to whisk those together. And here I'm going to crack 1 egg. I have here 1/2 cup of heavy cream and 1/2 cup of sour cream. Again, you do want to have your ingredients at room temperature before you start baking. I have 2 tablespoons of honey and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And I'm going to mix those together to combine. And I'm adding 2 tablespoons of softened butter. Right in with the flour and baking powder and salt. Okay, so we add the wet to the dry. And if you have one of these little kitchen scrapers, you can go ahead and use that. Mix your wet and dry ingredients together. You do want to mix it so that the butter does get incorporated. It is a sticky batter. Fairly thick. So I am using one of these German baking pans. I know not everybody's gonna have one of these. If you do, amazing. I love it. It comes apart into 2 pieces, so you can take your baking paper and slide your dessert right off of the pan when you're done. However, and I'll leave a link to this below in the description in case anybody would like to purchase one. You can use a regular 10 by 15 baking sheet, which is a small baking sheet, if you don't have one of these. This is a 12 by 14 that I'm going to use. To spray the sheet first, and then put my parchment paper down. To put the dough out onto the cookie sheet. Now there's a couple of ways that you can do this next step. You can wet your fingers, keep a little dish of water handy to keep your fingers wet for spreading. If you have a mini rolling pin, you can roll it out with just like a couple inches wide. You can go ahead and roll it out with that. Keep a little shaker of flour next to you and flour the top, but you really don't want to add too much flour to this because you don't want to make it a heavy and dense dough. So I'm just going to go ahead I wet my fingers. You can see how easily it spreads. Just gonna keep spreading this out until we get it all the way. Okay, so you do want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Just gonna decorate our cake with these delicious berries. There you go. It smells so good. And now we'll put the crumb topping on that we made earlier and set aside. I'm just gonna crumble this all over the top. Okay, we're gonna put this into a 375-degree oven for about 30 minutes. The cake is out of the oven and it looks beautiful. It's nice and golden on the top. We're just going to, it's been cooling for about 20 minutes. I'm just gonna slide it out of the pan. That's the great part about having parchment. If you didn't use any parchment and you just greased a cookie sheet, go ahead and leave it in the pan until it cools completely. But if you have a pan like this, or if you did put it on parchment in the cookie sheet, you can go ahead and slide it off the pan to finish cooling. And it just comes apart so easily. Slide the parchment onto the cooling rack and let it finish cooling. It's probably going to take another half hour to 45 minutes to cool completely. Okay, so our cake is all cooled. It looks beautiful, smells beautiful. We can leave it just like this. That's perfectly fine. There's a couple of options. You can put whipped cream, fresh whipped cream on the top as you serve it. A scoop of vanilla ice cream would be amazing, or even strawberry ice cream would be amazing. But today we're going to drizzle it with some powdered sugar and lemon juice. One of the things I wanted to tell you is that you can make powdered sugar at home. If you have a high-powered blender, I do have the Vitamix. It works really well. You just put your sugar in, and because I use the organic sugar, you're getting a better quality powdered sugar than buying the powdered sugar in the store, of course. And you just blend it until it's nice and powdery. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we have 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. And I'm gonna squeeze the juice of half of a lemon into here. And I do have a little bit of water handy. Sometimes we need it, sometimes we don't. Our mixture is thin enough, so we're not going to use any extra water. You want it to be thin, pouring consistency. It's good if you can do it in a measuring cup that has a little spout right on the side, so you don't have to dirty any extra dishes. And I'm just going to go ahead, and I really don't want to put much. It just kind of makes it look pretty and gives it a little something extra. And the flavor of the lemon goes great with the berries. Just get a little drizzle on there. And that's it. That was easy. So, it's a little bit of a rustic dessert, especially if you're going to use the pan that I used. You don't get it quite to the edges. One of the edges of the pan is slanted a little bit. So You can cut it and serve it just like this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that's what I would do. But if you are bringing it somewhere and you want it to look a little bit prettier, here's what you can do. I have a cup of hot water, and I'm just gonna run my knife into the hot water. And I'm gonna cut just the very edge off and square it up a little bit. And if you feel that your knife is getting sticky and you're making a mess, just go ahead and dip it into the water again. I don't think I need to at this point. These are a great little snack for the kids, or you can just put this aside and crumble it and put it on top of ice cream. What that does is pretties it up a little bit if you're going to be taking it somewhere and you want it into perfectly cut squares with pretty edges. And this cake does cut very nicely. Perfect piece of German style coffee cake with fresh summer berries. I hope you make this recipe. I really hope you enjoy it. If you do, I would really appreciate that you would leave in the comments that it's a great recipe, or if you're on my blog, simplyeatathome.com, on the recipe card, there's underneath the picture on the recipe card, there's stars. You can give a star, hopefully a 5-star review. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me at simplyeatathome.com. Have a great day. So I just wanted to put a reminder out there that everybody's oven does bake differently. And I know I said 35 minutes in the video because initially it was taking 35 minutes to bake this. Now my oven does a little funny thing sometimes, and it takes way longer or way less to cook. Now we're looking at 28 to 30 minutes until it's fully baked. You want it slightly golden. You don't want it brown or too golden because you don't want a dry cake. So I would recommend to start checking it at 25 minutes. You know your oven best. You know if it typically takes a little longer or a lot less to cook than most directions in the recipe. So go ahead and start checking it at 25 minutes.